So to help people really put those into action, you have on your website downloadable charts that people can work with, right? placingstones.com.
Right, and I have them there. I have to admit I have them there because it was suggested by several friends who'd read the book, who said, okay, I got it. Now, how could I turn this into something tangible? And I hesitated because I didn't want to turn this into a workbook or something, but I did do those worksheets because I think they're very simple. I think you can look at them. People will do simple things. They will not do super sophisticated multi-tabbed binders or iPhone apps that go forever, Excel spreadsheets. Right. They just simply won't do them. So I thought those very simple sheets would help people kind of focus their mind around the concept and the ideas. So that's why they're there. And of course, they're available for anyone who wants to download them. In the book and in Colin's journey, we also learn about the 4 L's. Now, what are those? Well, the 4 L's, and it's interesting they all happen to start with L. There are these very consistent patterns that exceptionally good people or successful people follow. Those 4 L's consist of love, learn, leverage, and luck. And love meaning loving what you do. And quite simply, if you love what you do, really what you do, not every single thing of what you do. No one loves to do the paperwork behind their job or whatever, but if you love what you do, enough of what you do, you have a chance of being great at it. If you don't, you have almost no chance of being great at it, right? You
because
will put
you
the
won't
time,
be willing
exactly.
to invest.
You'll put the time and energy in. So that's one, and great, very successful people do that. The second is learning. A lot of people get out of school or whatever early part of their career and stop learning or slow down learning dramatically, thinking they've learned enough and now they can live. It's time to do my real life. And that's not what great people do. That's not how Michelangelo died or Socrates died. These people are all learning till the very bitter end. What does it mean to be great and excel at what they're doing? So learning is incredibly important. And leverage is all about the reality that people don't achieve greatness alone. No matter what they tell you or may want to tell you, they have friends, they have colleagues, they have inspirations, they have teams. That's how great things get done. And it's not using people, it's working with people toward common goals. And you can think of 100 examples, whether it's a sports team or a great building or even a great book that's written by a wonderful author. Usually the author has friends who help them read the chapters and work through it. And the final one is luck. And it's easy to say, well, great, after all that, you have to depend on winning the lottery. Well, no, that's not the kind of luck you need. The kind of luck you need is the luck you make yourself. I tell several examples in the book, but I think one of my favorite examples was actually from a quote a golfer said. I think it was Gary Player. And he hits this beautiful golf shot straight down the golf course. And someone in the gallery screams out, "Lucky shot, Gary." And he looks back, according to his book, and says, "Funny, the more I practice, the luckier I get." And while that's a cute story, but the world is littered with people who have found the way, put themselves in the right positions for great things to happen, where another person of equal intelligence or motivation didn't put themselves in that position. So making your own luck is critical.
So creating the context for those things to be able to happen.
Absolutely. This old joke about the person who fishes in the same place underneath a shady tree, but there's no fish. Well, if you want to catch fish, you got to go where the fish are, right? And I could extend that actually quite a few places. I know a young woman who, at 22, wanted to go work for a very prominent media company, National Geographic, in fact. And what you don't do is you don't send in your resume to National Geographic and expect to get a response, right? Because they get inundated by that.
They're too busy for you, yeah.
What you do is find someone socially who works there, befriend them, honestly befriend them, see if they can get your resume into that place. And that's exactly what that young woman happened to do. So making your own luck is essential. And again, if you look at the stories of great people, and I mean great in that they achieve what they wanted to achieve.
Not necessarily that they're rich or famous.
Great,
right.
Successful, athletically, great intellectually. I think that I was on a plane recently and I mentioned to someone, I was on my way to give a talk about this book. And I was on this plane and I sat next to a guy and you never know whether you want to talk to the person next to you on the plane or they want to talk to you, and you're kind of doing that little delicate dance. And one thing led to another, we started talking. It turns out he's a communications consultant, runs and owns his own communications company, and gave me 45 minutes of great tips on how to deliver a public talk based on a book that I had written, and of course the one you're holding, and a book that he had written. So if I had been quiet and studious and inward, right. So making your own luck can simply be having the conversation with the right person at the right time.
Serendipitous.
Yeah, it's serendipity plus taking that next step, taking that next proactive action. So I hope people will make their own luck.
Well, one thing that I really like, and you kind of demonstrated it right here on the cover, doing and having cross out everything what matters most. And I think that really kind of highlights a new paradigm shift that I've noticed in the past 10 years. I know that there's been a lot of pressure from families to, and especially women, to be a great mom and have a great career, and that you can do it all. And then I think recently that kind of pressure has shifted from having it all at once to having it all, but not all at the same time.
Right, right.
And I think that's reflected here. Would you say that's accurate?
It is, and there are some examples in the book, or talking through the stories, where you probably can have almost everything in life if it's at different times. And the most obvious examples are the professional career woman who wants to go out and have a career and raise her own kids. Hey, you can have your own kids, but do you raise them if you're working 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day? And the fact is that's not possible. And it's the same thing, use its version for a man. Men don't necessarily suffer from the same biological clock, but do you want to raise kids that you never see? And do you want to have kids when you're 60? Well, you can, but there's challenges in that, right? I actually, one of the inspirations, the probably biggest inspiration behind this entire book, that was prior to the movie I told you about, was a Harry Chapin song called Cats in the Cradle, which it's an older song, but that song became, and it's a song about a business guy, very busy business guy, who's too busy to raise his son, and he always makes excuses about why he can't see his son. His son grows up and makes the same excuses about why he can't see his dad, right? So it occurred to me, I pick up the phone, it occurred to me that my son was just like me. I sang that song, I sing all the time, and inconveniently, so I sing all the time, and I used to sing that song all the time, and that became the inspiration behind how I would raise my own son. So I don't do that to my son. You give him a ball, you teach him to throw, right? You give him a bike, you teach him to ride. You do things with your kids, and that means some sacrifices, so you have to make. So, and I think they're different for women, different for men, but the theme is the same. You can't have it all at full speed. You can do a little of everything, right? You can have a balanced life. But you're not going to win the Ironman. You're not going to be a billionaire. You're not going to read the great books. And you're not going to have a wonderful family all at one time.
It's about moderation.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. I think it's about where you want to do it. Where you want to do it and when you want to do it.
What do you think is the main audience for your book? Because I can see this applying to people straight out of college. I can see it applying to people who are maybe in their 40s, wondering, what they're going to do with the next 20 years. Who did you intend this for?
Well, when I first started writing it, I intended it just for me, just as a cathartic experience to kind of, what I find is if you think a lot and you don't write anything down, the thoughts just bounce around inside your head like a ping pong ball. So I wrote it down for my own purposes, and at the time I was in my late 30s when I started writing it. I think the audience is for people who, whenever in life they get to these questions, right? When does envy kick in? When does regret kick in? When does conflict between what you should do with your time kick in? And at different people, it happens to different people at different times. It can happen to a housewife when her kids are 10 and 12. It can happen to a business person when his kids are 10 or 12. So I think it's more about a life event or a bringing together of feelings of a life event than it is about a particular age. But realistically, when does that happen? Probably in your 30s. Kicks in heavily in your 30s. And then by the time you're in your 40s, it's the bell's ringing pretty strong.
So Chris, you also take this kind of on the road. You give presentations about the concepts behind the book.
I do. I think that was something that wasn't part of the original plan, but it turns out I think what I really enjoy doing is talking about this subject and then hearing how different people's stories and lives. It's kind of funny when you leave and you hear someone make some comment about, well, I got to go play some stones with my family, or whatever they say. So I think it's wonderful. It's just exciting to me to hear those ideas get into people's minds. So sometimes it's a very quick conversation, or where I'm standing up for 20 or 30 minutes covering the subjects. Other times it's longer, where you can delve into, so what could you do? What action steps could you follow in those? And a lot of people really want that next step. So yeah, I enjoy that. I love that. I love working with people to go through issues that I think are global, really.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sitting down with me. It was really great to learn more about the book. And people can go to placingstones.com if they want to know more.
They can do that. They can also go to amazon.com if they'd like to buy the book.
Well, thank you, Chris. It was a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you very much, Alicia.